is what
Good
happened.
afternoon. My name is Donna Marie Collins. I'm the hearing examiner that will be presiding over this afternoon's zoning hearing. It's a conventional rezoning request, and for that reason, the decision will be final with me. So at the conclusion of the hearing, I'll prepare a report that will have a final decision of either approve or deny. Since we don't have any members of the public here and I have seasoned presenters, I'm going to administer the oath and just get into the hearing. Okay. If you will be speaking on the record, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony and evidence you enter into the record will be the truth?
I do.
Okay, thank you. I'm ready to begin.
Madam Hearing Examiner, may I submit the affidavit of publication, notice of public hearing into your record?
Yes. Staff report is Staff Exhibit 1. The affidavit of publication will be Staff Exhibit 2. Thank you, Adam. Mike, you may begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Hearing Examiner. For the record, Mike Rader here on behalf of Mr. David Zangari, who has the professional auto mechanic at 3305 Lee Boulevard, which is right in front of the subject property, which are at 3306 and 3308 4th Street in the back there. And they are vacant residential RS1 zone property. So you want to put that original? That it is. That's a good vision. And
So where's the mechanic business?
right up in front there.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and when I talked to David, I said, when you read the Lehigh plan, they not only encourage this to be commercial, they almost require it because it's in the mixed-use overlay, and the policy 11.2.4 recommends conventional zoning. Right onto the west is a large grocery store, Key Foods, and it's very busy. And then Mr. Zangari's business is to the north, and next to that is a car wash.
Does he own the other properties on 4th Street? Does he own the other properties on 4th Street?
Just the one where his business is.
Okay.
3305, right. Anyway, you notice you didn't get a 48-hour notice, because when I read the staff report, I said I certainly don't have any issues with that. In fact, I said I maybe should think about retiring. I don't think I'll ever get a more positive staff report than that. And Adam can talk about it. He's actually recommending C2 zoning because of the pattern. In fact, Adam, if you could put that other slide up, I think it's very illustrative of the problem Lehigh Acres has. When you look at the thousands of single-family platted lots, they really are trying to achieve a commercial core that's needed for all of those residences. And that whole purple is all zone C2, including David's property in front. And our little piece in red there is RS1, and the one right next door is vacant and owned by an LLC. And as the staff pointed out, that's almost certainly going to become in as commercial in the future as well, because it makes no sense to have another house there. So I could go through all the policies and goals, but I think Adam made such a good staff report, I'm going to let him talk about that. The main thing, it's on B2, it's in the neighborhood activity center overlay, one of the mixed-use overlays in there. And when you look at that in conjunction with policy 11.2.4, they recommend conventional zoning if you're in the overlay. So here we are with that request. Now, I've been asked, David really has no plans for the property. When we're asked at the Lehigh Community Planning Panel, we said the most likely thing would be some parking for his business, or possibly some parking for the grocery store next door. but it's not really something he has plans for. He really think he's going to be selling his property before too long. It would just make a lot of sense to have it all zoned at that time, and somebody could come in with a more comprehensive use, and that's in line with what the staff was talking about too in their report. So if there's questions, I'll be happy to answer any questions. I think, as you can see, Lee Boulevard and Sunshine, it's one of the most intense intersections in Lehigh Acres, and it really makes sense to allow for a more intense development there. Do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
I don't know if, David, you want to say anything?
I just, and I'm sure she's aware of it, that the businesses that are building on Lee Boulevard, and the fact of the matter is that there's very little commercial property on Lee Boulevard that's just being bought up rather quickly. There's a limited amount of commercial C2 property left on Lee Boulevard. Now, when these businesses come in like the group, I've been there 30 years. And my building was standing there when nothing was out there. So I've watched all this happen. As you can see, all of the businesses that build on Lee Boulevard are from Lee Boulevard to the road behind them, just like that Key Foods is, as well as we're trying to do with my building, because obviously I own the mechanic shop in front of that. The 2 lots, I'd love to have 3 of them back there, but I only have 2 of them. And surely, like Mike said, that the properties to those vegetated lots, they're going to be changed commercial as well. So that whole plat from the grocery store to the road there is surely, should be C2 for something to come in there. Now, what I expect in the future is they're not going to want my building, that someone's going to come in there. Lehigh needs places for people to go eat. There's nowhere to go eat out there. So maybe in the future, ale house, something like that's going to come in there, and they're going to want to buy my spot, because that's a really good spot. And they're going to need additional property back there. They're going to want to be from Lee Boulevard to the road behind, like all the other businesses are doing. I believe that up the street was a Chipotle they just put in. Aspen Dental went in there. So there's just a lot going on Lee Boulevard now. This intersection right here is real close to downtown Lehigh. And if you go any place past my building, it's, you're kind of getting out of town a little bit. And the places are getting a little sparse. So this is a great spot for somebody to come in and put something in Lehigh that the Lehigh people can utilize. I think it's a great spot for somebody to come in there and develop that into something that the Lehigh residents can utilize. Not saying that my mechanic shop has been a great blessing to the people of Lehigh. However, I am 63. I'm not going to be there much longer. And my plan in the future, I'd love to get that C2 connected to my C2. And then when I sell it, somebody will be able to, whatever they want to do, they're going to have to present, obviously, a development order for what they want to do. And that's really why I don't want to come in and say, look, oh, I want to put a parking lot back there, or I want to do this with it, because I really don't want to do anything to it except for rezone it to C2.
You know, it's interesting. It's one of the first times I've experienced the ability to rezone to a C. Back in 1978, when they amended the zoning code, they made all those C1, C2 defunct. You know, you couldn't ask for those any longer. And then finally they realized that we have this mixed use category sitting there in our storage bin, and they revitalized it for these limited applications. And so finally, I think this is maybe the first time I've been able to rezone to a C. When Mark Ebolini saw this, he said, "You can't do that." I said, "No, they did change the rules." So anyway, I think it's very interesting. It makes a lot of sense. And Adam, I'm really happy that Adam really took the Lehigh plan seriously.
Yes, I felt well prepared for this hearing due
All
to
right.
the comprehensiveness of the staff
Yeah.
report.
Well, hopefully I can top that off with a presentation. It'll be brief. Madam Hearing Examiner, for your record, Adam Mendez, Principal Planner with the Community Development Zoning Section. I do have Staff Exhibit 3 PowerPoint presentation, 2 copies, and 1 for the applicant.
Thank you.
Right, I want to thank the applicant's team for just doing a walkthrough of the actual built environment and the description of the appropriateness of rezoning this portion of this block to commercial, but just to kind of get us situated for those who may be viewing online, as I did speak with some interested property owners who said they'd be viewing online. These were property owners with vacant property on the south side of 4th Street. That the Key Food Store is currently underparked, or at least for their business model, and so there's a lot of yeah, you'll see that in the aerial. There is a lot of parking.
I did the site check, that was glaringly clear to me.
They are underparked.
Yes, they parked per the code, and the single-use supermarket didn't hit the spot there. But you see they're parking in the canal and they're parking on the street. And so that was really the interest of folks is there going to be, in some cases, more parking for Key Food so they don't park on the street. And I said, well, the possibility of this rezoning is that could become true with the C2 district, or at least any zoning, commercial zoning district, if you look at the use regulations table with respect to parking lots. So we've gone into where it is location-wise. It's in the central urban future land use category, heavily settled, a wide range of urban services. We have letters in the file from FGUA demonstrating the location of water and sewer mains adjacent to the site. I will show you kind of the location of those as we get into it. But it's a heavily settled corridor in Lehigh Acres. Especially near the intersection of Sunshine Boulevard and Lee Boulevard, where they decided to designate this particular area and the mixed-use overlay, which is paving the pathway for the commercial zoning of those once-defunct zoning districts Mike was talking about, C1A, C1, and C2. So the request originally was to rezone to C1, and while staff certainly supports that, there was the thought that it would create a split zoning on Mr. Zangari's property. And what benefit would that be? Would there be a real benefit to compatibility with the surrounding area? And so in order to really get into that, we looked at the entire area surrounding the subject property for what's the actual fabric surrounding. And we found that just the C2 designation was so predominant. It's almost similar to the North Fort Myers commercial corridor, where it's just a unified known zoning district along the corridor between the frontage roads on both sides. And that's just how it's been developed since 1962 in most cases. When the C2 district, which once was BU2, evolved into where it is today. And so we're looking at this gap, and we think it makes a lot of sense to close that with C2 zoning to eliminate any unforeseen complications of split zoning, if that were to arise, and also to permit a full suite of uses that are allowed in the C2 district, which I'll get into in this slide. But I wanted to back up and just show you where these urban services are. So you see there's a 12-inch potable water main that runs across the frontage of the current professional auto mechanic business. You've got a sewer force main that connects to a car wash that's adjacent to the vacant property under separate ownership. Both of these properties accumulate 0.75 acres. They're owned by a trust. And then you've got the subject property. The Key Foods store, per development order approval, they had to pave a sidewalk down 4th Street. So you have an existing sidewalk on this road. And we did mention that there's a Lee Tran bus stop in proximity to the subject property. I put together this slide to just, for full transparency, to allow you to take a look at the uses that are exclusive to the C2 district as compared to the C1 district. So these are uses that are permitted in C2 that are either not permitted by right in C1 or require a special exception in C1. So if you go through, you'll see the vast majority are warehouse related. We've got the lighter scale of the manufacturing groups that are permitted in C2 over under the manufacturing of. You've got some large scale things like bus station depots and certain processing plants that just wouldn't seem feasible here just because of the size of the area in question. So some of these uses that are more regional in nature probably couldn't happen just by virtue of the limitations of the land. But this is, again, looking back at just the surrounding area, this is a reoccurring condition. All of these properties in proximity have the same exact, in this purple shade, C2 zoning, have the same opportunity to develop those uses that I just showed you that aren't in the C1 category. So I think staff finds that the current built environment and current zoning would support the idea that C2 is compatible as it is consistent along this corridor. And so with that, staff did find that this was consistent with the Lee Plan, Goal 25, specifically encouraging infill commercial development and encouraging conventional rezoning and the mixed-use overlay under Goal 11, that it was compatible with surrounding land uses and met the Land Development Code and other regulations, and that it has opportunity for access that's sufficient. In fact, it allows for a situation where access will be on the reverse frontage road potentially in the future instead of Lee Boulevard, reducing conflicts. It's not impacting any environmentally sensitive lands or natural resources, and it's served by urban services, as I just explained. So with that, I understand there's no conditions we can tie to this conventional rezoning, but we do feel that the binding conditions of the Land Development Code and other county regulations are sufficient to mitigate any impacts from this particular rezoning here. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to address them. And the applicant did meet the community plan requirement of having the public information session before the Lehigh Acres Architectural Review Board to discuss the rezoning. At that time, it was consistent with the application, a rezoning to C1, but C2 is staff's recommendation here.
All right, and it sounds like the applicant does not object to that.
No. There's no uses in C2 that aren't in C1, if that makes sense.
Right,
There's,
it's like more expansive.
it's more expansive, that's correct.
And so the idea is to rezone it to make the property overall more marketable as he chooses to step off into retirement, or if somebody buys your business, they can expand, or.
It would connect the two properties. The frontage, the mechanic shop is C2. So it makes all the sense in the world to make the property behind it C2 as well, as if it does and when it does sell, it will be sold all as a C2 property, which would actually make that 1.25 acres.
Yes, reducing complexities, the split zoning would seem advantageous here.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that. We have many cases where we have to go back and rectify those situations.
Yeah.
So it's good to be proactive in this instance and zone it for what is adjacent to it.
Yes.
And that will facilitate redevelopment should that happen in the future. Expansion or redevelopment. All right, well, thank you. I don't have any additional questions. I have been out to the site already, so I'll be turning my attention to this case. Hopefully, I'll have a decision out before the holiday.
Okay.
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Adam, that very good report.
Yes, outstanding.